When we left off on our agenda, we were on item 5B.
Boom.
5B is an action item, CU-12-22, conditional use permit for a height exception and public service facility, Veolia Water, Idaho Incorporated, represented by JUB Engineers. Is the applicant here and prepared this evening?
Sorry, trying to get this up here. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Thanks for having us here tonight. For the record, I'm Ren Thurgood with JUB Engineers, 2760 West Excursion Lane, Meridian 83642. I'm just going to zoom in here real quick. So I got off there a minute, just so we can see the area we're looking at. So JUB was hired to design and go through the entitlement process to request a conditional use permit approval for a height exemption for a water metering pole for Veolia, formerly Suez Water, Idaho. And as a part of that exemption, the pole would be 40 feet, which is 5 feet above the maximum height limit of 35. But in addition, with a extension of 8 feet for an antenna, a metal antenna to go on top. And so this metering pole would help Veolia kind of boost the signal in this area. And I apologize, I need to backtrack here for just a second. It's 600 North Eagle Road, just across from Eagle Elementary. There is a small parcel just to the north of this, I believe it's a care facility, to the north of that, where there is, as you can see here, there are 2 sheds on the property where the pole is planned to be put, if approved. And so going through that, like I said, this pole would basically help Veolia to be able to collect data remotely instead of having to go out and do it manually. And again, boosting the signal strength in the area to give them that ease of collecting the data. Basically, this pole would be just like a telephone pole that you would see, with the exception, like I said, of an 8-foot antenna on top of it. That's really about all I had, and if there's any questions, I'm open to those. And if there are more technical questions, Rob Barrett is here with Veolia as well to help with that if needed.
Thank you, Mr. Was it Thurgood or Thurgood?
Thurgood.
Thank you, Mr. Thurgood. I appreciate that. What are those 2 buildings right now where this perceived pole is to go?
One has a well in there, correct me if I'm wrong, Rob, and the other one is just a storage. Correct, yes. Storage shed.
And those are property of Veolia right now, this parcel?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, questions? Commissioner McLaughlin.
I had a couple of questions. Is there any landscape buffering that's going to be put in, trees to kind of try to hide it?
So that's a very good question. There is existing trees there, as you see. I feel like it's a pretty good, accurate representation of what's there. It's an undeveloped parcel, and so the only thing that has been put on there, to my knowledge, as far as is just those 2 sheds. And so it would actually sit kind of where my mouse is, back in this southeast corner. And so there are trees there already hiding it. I'm not saying that it wouldn't stick above the trees. I know I haven't measured it out exactly, but there should have been in the packet a pretty good representation of what it would look like. And
I saw that.
Okay.
I did see it. So my other question is, could this not be sunk 8 feet so that you would be at 32 feet and then 8 feet and not going up to 48 feet?
That's a really good question. Rob could probably answer it a little bit better, but as far as getting the boost for the signal, I believe it needs to be at that height in order to get the signals to talk to the other meters in the area. Am I mistaken on that, Rob, or would you like?
Yes, we need you at a microphone if you're going to talk, sir. If you could just identify yourself for the record, please.
It's Robert Barrett, and I'm with the Veolia Water, Idaho.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, Commissioner
McLaughlin.
Part of this is it's a meter reading system, so it reads the meters. The meters actually have small radios in them. Not, we'll be installing them. There are some already in the Eagle area. The vendor that we have this from did what's called a propagation study. So they have a computer model that will simulate what it will pick up. And that's what they came up was the center line of that antenna needs to be about 44 to 45 feet to get the optimal reading on there. These meters are very low wattage meters. This communications device actually just listens out there. So every 4 hours, the water meters, they do a process they call them bubbling up, but they kind of send a signal out and they report their meter reading at that time. So that's what they came back at 45 feet. That will cover quite a bit of area in that. So
That's the top of the antenna or the middle?
the middle of the antenna. So the top of the antenna would be at 48 feet.
Okay. I just worry it's going to be like the tree at Eagle Hills Golf Course, but no,
No big tree?
without
Yeah, there's
any
no tree. It
branches.
doesn't look like a tree. Yeah.
No, I know. I saw it.
Do you have a follow-up question, Commissioner McLaughlin?
No.
Commissioner Smith?
Sir, yes, indeed. We had a wonderful time with the cell tower tree and trying to disguise it, et cetera. This is going to be just a little more prominent. Not only does it sit on the hill, also, it is just going to be this straight telegraph pole. Is there any thought or effort to make it blend in? Now, I'm not naive, but one of the words that is used in putting up such a thing is harmonious. I don't see harmonious in this item. I can understand it's just a plain simple pole in the air, and that's it. But is there anything that your company can do to make it just a little bit more palatable instead of just this great single pole in the air?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner, one thing that we did put it as it's kind of like a telephone pole, and we tried to put it back on the hill a little bit behind the trees, and then we try to keep it in line so it would look more like a power line going through there, or a telephone pole is what we try to keep those looking like. So that's what we had. The putting them up as the fake trees, they end up looking like a fake tree. At some of our places that we have out in the desert, we actually have like lattice type metal poles, but that would stand out even worse.
What about the color? Paint? Is it going to be natural wood color?
It'll be the same color as like what you would have for a power pole or something like that.
Well, fundamentally, I understand the need for it, but I think that there must be some effort, in my opinion, some effort made just to make it a little more than just the straight brown pole in the air. And I'm quite certain you have people with good imaginations that can come up with something. It's not a showstopper for me. I'm not going to reject it just on that, but I think that essentially your company has a free hand here because you're a public utility. But I think that you owe something to the citizens to do something meaningful to perhaps fix the appearance. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Gerber?
I used to live in that area, and if you're putting the pole where that little mouse is, I think it's probably going to be pretty well shielded with the trees around it. Do you know how tall the power poles are that run all the way up Eagle Road? Would be fairly close to this?
I believe the ones that's on Eagle Road itself, going north and south, are right about 60 feet.
Okay.
They're not the normal poles that would go in a residential area. They're pretty high powered. So.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, that they were pretty tall. So this is actually shorter than the poles that already exist within that area.
Correct.
Thank you.
Commissioner McCauley?
My comments were the same. I think if you're on the road with a 25 or 30 foot tree or whatever it is right there, that it's going to be pretty hard to see line of sight, so I don't have a problem with it.
Okay. Any other questions, commissioners? Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
Oh,
Thank you.
yes, I may, if I may, sir.
Of course,
Will
Commissioner
it
Smith.
will it make our water bill go down that you don't have all these people reading meters?
I guess it's the way you look at it. What part of this system, what it does is because we're getting 4-hour readings on that we do get alarms if your water doesn't stop running for so long. That means you got a leak. So we have actually called people and said, you got something running out there.
Interesting.
So I guess that way it could help maybe your water bill go down.
Okay. It was a facetious question, but hopefully you were going to say it might take us down 2 or 3%. But thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, gentlemen, we'll have him back up at the end.
Thank you.
Ms. Besaw, welcome back to the commission.
Thank you. It's been a while.
It has been a while.
Okay, good evening, commissioners. The application I have in front of you this evening is for a conditional use permit number 1222 for Veolia Water. The applicant is requesting a conditional use permit approval for a height exception to construct a 40-foot tall water metering pole, which is classified as a public service facility with an 8-foot antenna. So it will reach a total height of 48 feet. Here is a vicinity map as was presented. It's approximately a half mile north of State Street. So the history of the site, it is currently zoned R9. That is because in September of 1989, the Eagle City Council approved the Riverstone Townhomes PUD plat, and at that time, in '89, it was approved with a permanent easement for Eagle Water Company over the entirety of the subject parcel. So you can see that it was designated R9. On their comp plan designation, it is identified as public, semi-public. It is currently being used for a water pump house and storage, and they're proposing a water metering antenna. No change to the comp plan designation or the zoning designation is proposed at this time. So, per code in this area, a lot could be smaller. It's 7,800 square feet, but they're not proposing any changes to the lot size. Probably the most interesting thing or relevant thing on here is that the setbacks proposed, it's in the wrong row, but the setback from the rear would typically be 15 feet, and they're proposing 12 feet. Other than that, they're in excess of all the other setbacks. Front setback would be 5 feet. They're way well back of that. Looks like there were some errors in that table when I copied it over, so I apologize. The height is not proposed to be 80 feet, as it says here. That was the front setback. So they're proposing to be set back from the road 80 feet, whereas code would say that minimum required front setback is 20 feet. Here is the site layout. So these are, as the applicant mentioned, there are many existing trees on site. The structure, the pole is proposed to be set back here, roughly behind the houses, or I'm sorry, behind the trees. These structures are the 2 sheds, so they're south of the sheds behind the trees. These were the elevations provided of the poles, so we asked for some example photos. So these are not at the site, they are at some other site, but similar pole. So wood pole, as was mentioned, similar to a telephone pole with an antenna on top. As I mentioned, these are not the exact site, so our site has more trees and screening around the pole than this one. As I mentioned, this is identified as a public service facility, and per code in all zones, public service facilities are permitted with a CUP, which is why the applicant is here this evening. Also, as they mentioned, design requirements state that nothing can be in excess of 35 feet without special approval. So additional height is permitted if a conditional use permit is approved by the city council. So that's why there is a CU both here for the use and then for the height. These are the standards that need to be met for a conditional use permit, that the use will in fact be permitted as a CU per code, which it is, will be harmonious with and in accordance with the general objectives of the comprehensive plan, that will be designed, constructed, operated, maintained to be harmonious in appearance with the existing or intended character of the vicinity, will not be hazardous or disrupting to existing or future neighboring uses, will be served adequate by essential public facilities, will not create excessive additional requirements at public cost, will not involve uses, activities, processes, materials, etc., that would be detrimental to the general welfare of the neighborhood. Will have vehicular approaches to the property which are so designed as not to create interference with traffic, will not result in the destruction, loss, or damage of agricultural lands, scenic, cultural, or historic features. So discussion per Eagle Code, the facilities are allowed within the R9 zone with the CUP. As we discussed, the wooden metering pole will be 40 feet tall with an additional 8-foot antenna on top for a total of 48 feet. Per Eagle Code, additional height may be approved through the issuance of a CUP. Utility poles are not considered structures and therefore may be located within setbacks and or public utility easements. For example, telephone poles, power poles are normally located even within the right-of-way or in the front portion of a lot. Along all property lines, we do have public utility easements, and this would be appropriate within those easements. The site was selected because it is back significantly from the road and the pole will be partially shielded from view by the existing vegetation. The site is not currently, nor will the improvements require the site to be staffed, so require additional parking. This can be an unstaffed site. The applicant has said that they do have one current parking space on site that they use if they have to go maintain the pump house, and so that's not proposed to change. If the commission chooses to recommend the approval of this application, staff recommends the following site-specific conditions of approval in addition to the city's standard conditions of approval. The applicant shall submit payment to the city for all engineering and legal fees. The applicant shall submit a design review application to the city for review and approval prior to any site work. And per Eagle City Code, the pole shall be impregnated with a rot-resistant substance. And that is everything I have, but I would stand for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Bisson. We appreciate your testimony. I think you heard the comments from my fellow commissioners about harmonious nature, camouflaging, setbacks.
Sure.
Any thoughts on that as far as the application goes?
I would mention that if you read through a lot of the design standards for the city, they actually do encourage use of, say, wood poles over metal and things like that. So I think the applicant has at least paid attention to some of our general design guidelines in that respect. And then also regarding landscaping or painting the pole or anything like that, the staff recommended conditions do include that the applicant submit a design review application to the city that would go to the design review board and then city council to look at any other requirements like that.
Thank you, Ms. Bisson. Commissioners, questions for staff at this time?
I have just one.
Commissioner Smith.
I just want to be sure that there will be no temptation by the company to put any other type of metering devices on that pole. Is that something that's understood, or is it something we should condition?
I suppose I would defer to the applicant to see if that would be something that they would even be looking to, if that's a possibility with the design of the pole. Okay. But the staff recommended conditions at this time do not address that. So that'd be something that you could add a condition on if you were concerned, based on what the response is.
Okay, thank you. I'll wait for rebuttal.
Additional questions, commissioners? Okay, Ms. Bisson, thank you so much. Okay. So again, if I call your name and this is the public hearing and you've signed in on the wrong one, no big deal. We'll catch you on the last application. At this point, we have Robert Barrett. Mr. Barrett? Oh, duh. Okay. Sorry. It's a long evening. And then I have Andrew, is it Merritt? 3125 West Homer Road. It's probably on another application, isn't it? Okay. I don't have anybody else that signed in that says they'd like to testify on item 5B. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to provide public testimony on the application? Okay, seeing none. We invite the applicant back up for final rebuttal and comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Just as to follow up as far as not wanting to put anything else on the pole, I just talked with Robin, he said that they are not planning to put anything else on that pole other than the antenna. So I wanted to bring that to a close. That's all I have. This is my first one. I'm sorry. I'm just.
Okay.
I'm
The
working
brevity
through
is
it.
appreciated. Trust me.
I'm just being transparent.
Appreciate it. You're doing fantastic. Commissioners, any final questions for the applicant at this time? Okay, seeing none, thank you, sir. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
At this point, we will close the public hearing on item 5B and go into discussion. Commissioners, anybody care to get us going? Commissioner McCauley.
I'd like to make a motion.
Motion is always in order.
I make a motion that we recommend for approval CU-12-22 with recommended site-specific conditions for approval.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner McCauley. Thank you, Commissioner McLaughlin. Commissioners, we do have a motion and a second before us on item 5B. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 The chairman votes aye as well. Motion passes. Thank you, Commissioners. Commissioners, on our agenda, we have our last action item for the evening. It's item 5C, CPA-01-22, Comprehensive Plan Land Use Map Amendment, Cedar Creek Wealth, represented by Nicolette Womack of Kimley Horn. Is the